Hot Flashes and Cool Topics, a podcast for women in midlife and beyond. At Hot Flashes and Cool Topics, we talk about anything and everything to do with midlife. My name is Bridget.
And I'm Colleen.
And oh my goodness, are we excited today?
This whole
It's
season,
incredible. I am just like, it's all surreal, but we just talked to Joan Lunden. So Joan Lunden from Good Morning America, that you all remember waking up with her and
Charlie Gibbons.
Yeah, Charlie Gibbons back in the 80s, 90s. She has written a fantastic book. Now, she's written many books, but her latest book is Why Did I Come Into This Room? Which I ask myself all the time.
On a daily basis.
On an hourly basis.
It's like so sad. You're like doing something and you just get distracted for a second. And then you get in the room and you're like, I'm just going to stand here until it comes back to me. I know if I look around, it's not.
There's so many, like I've started keeping little pads of paper around that I really do. I go in, I'm like, I better go write that down real quick or I'm going to forget. And there's something with a trash can that I was like, yeah, I'll put a trash can there. I don't remember where that was. I know there's a trash can involved. I can't remember this.
That's half the battle.
Half the battle. I know that it was a trash can. Anyway, go ahead, Colleen.
No, I was just going to say, Joan Lunden, first off, is a powerhouse. I mean, her energy is amazing. We talked to her for an hour and a half. We could have talked to her for another 6 days, but we were starting to feel a little bad. Her phone was ringing and we were like, she might have work to do.
Yes.
This is a woman who just taped 10 episodes of a show, Second Opinion, with Joan Lunden for PBS in a week. She just banked them all, and she was talking to Tony Fauci, and she was talking to like all of these head doctors.
Top experts. Yes, top experts.
And she's like, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and and I have 2 sets of twins. I was exhausted just listening to her daily
she has so much energy and so giving to share that energy, and that her book is really wonderful. I mean, you'll hear in the interview how it motivated me to get some things done that maybe I wouldn't have. And anybody should read it. It is focused on women in midlife. However, it's going to be beneficial to anybody. And she'll talk about that as well. It just everything that you want to know about your health. And also, you don't feel lonely because you hear the funny things that happened to her. She's so honest and open with it, and that there is humor, and it is easy to follow when you read it and you find out what's happening.
Oh, it's such an easy read.
Yes.
It's such an easy read.
It's not jargon that you're not going to understand. It is something like, okay. Yeah.
Like
now
she'll say this happens, but then she'll use very simple terms to say, and it happens because of this. So you're not talking, this expert talks about the hippocampus and no, she talks about it very simply so that we can understand it. And I think that's her many decades of journalism experience that knows that, our brains can only absorb so much at this point.
Yes, but it's so great. It's a wonderful book, and she was so wonderful to take all that time to talk to us. She's busy. I mean,
and it's isn't it a funny thing? Like when we're taping these shows, because we have been very blessed to be getting some really great people coming on and talking to us. Not that, I mean, everyone's great, but when you see like you're on Zoom and Joan Lunden's name pops up as wanting to talk to you, you're like, can I take a picture of that before?
Yes. Yeah. I was like, okay, Colleen, we got to quit talking. Joan Lunden's like, we're waiting to admit her into the Zoom call. Come on. Yeah.
Mindy Cohn's coming in. Okay. Yes, it's surreal. You know what I mean? It's just, and they all have been just the loveliest, most gracious people, everyone that we have spoken to. Who have taken the time, and we're always very cognizant of, is there anything you don't want to talk about? Do you want to just talk for 30 minutes? They're like, no, we can talk. I mean, it's been wonderful. I mean, I am so grateful that we started this podcast. I truly am.
Yeah. Who knew? And just, just happen over a conversation. We'll press record. We did.
And look where it has taken us.
I know I would have dreamed I've been talking to the people that I'm talking to and having such open, honest conversations with them.
And being able to share it with so many people in the world as listeners and saying, I'm not alone. You mean she talks about leakage as well. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So wonderful.
So we're going to let her start because it was a really great interview. Mm-hmm. But thank you, Joan Lunden. We appreciate it. And here we go.
Well, welcome to Hot Flashes and Cool Topics. And today we are so excited. We have a wonderful guest. We have Joan Lunden. And I'm sure you all know who Joan Lunden is. She met us for so many years on Good Morning America in the morning. And she is the author of 10 books. And her most recent book is Why Did I Come Into This Room? Which I ask myself all the time.
Daily basis.
On a daily basis. So thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
It's my pleasure.
Yes.
I love the title of your show.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. So that was kind of Colleen's little popped out of her brain. So
well, we kind of, we wanted the demographic to know we were here, and we also wanted them to know that we talk about everything. So
well, you can tell because you read my book that's right up my alley.
Right.
Yes.
Throw everything out there, and at the very least, we can all laugh at it that it happens. Everything happens to women.
That is true. And Why Did I Come Into This Room? It's such a great read, honestly, because obviously we relate to it on this level. And we were just talking off air that in each of your books, they kind of come off of a time in your life that is personal experience, whether it's having kids or changing careers. Yep. So when did you decide I'm going to write a book about the changes that happen in midlife and beyond?
To be very honest, about 6-7 years ago. And I started it because, I was coming from through my 40s up into my 50s, into my 60s. And people always used to ask, what's the secrets, to being kind of vivacious and keeping yourself kind of, young. And I started it out back then, and it was called Live Younger, Longer. Mm-hmm. So then I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I went through that, and I wrote another book, Had I Known, all about my breast cancer journey. And when I came back to this manuscript, which I knew there was something there, I knew I wanted to talk about women and what happens to us physically, emotionally, and psychologically as we age. But I had learned by just learning so much about my body because, I'm a journalist. Like when I got breast cancer, I started studying what does my pancreas do? What does my thyroid do? How do cells divide? And I just thought it's not about living younger. It's about living our healthiest, happiest self at these different ages and stages that women go through. And we go through them in a much different way than men because men don't have estrogen. And estrogen so changes us, as we just are perimenopause and then through menopause and then afterwards. Like I would come across, as I started, I said to myself, so what am I going to write about now? Well, let's see what's happening to me. Aging. And that's what every woman is kind of concerned about. How are they going to age? How do they do it and stay their healthiest and happiest and feel good about themselves? And I said, we got it. And as I started looking into it, I thought, they don't bring these topics up that much. I mean, sometimes doctors do, but do we really read all of their books? I mean, seriously?
Yours was easier to read.
Oh, I wrote a funny book.
That's right.
You can't talk about leaky bladders if you're not going to be funny. Like I said, okay, everybody ready for potty talk? Here we go.
Right, exactly.
Yes. And, it was as soon as I came to that realization that that's what I was going to write about and that I should just do it as raw and real and candid and say everything, how I went through how I've been experiencing all these different things. And it had to be funny. And I thought, so then what do you do as the title of the book? What scares women and men, frankly, the most? It's not the expanding waistline. I mean, that's annoying. It's forgetting things because we're all so frightened that it's the beginning of cognitive decline. And I'm going to say, honestly, even the medical industry used to think that cognitive decline, the shrinking of our hippocampus, that's the memory center, that it started like in our 60s. We now know it starts at around 30, which is a bit of a mind blower in of itself.
Yeah.
And then, pretty soon you find out that it's, as we are forgetful, we're not conditioned to worry about it when we're 20 and we walk in a room and we can't remember why we came in here. But man, if you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s, you walk in and it's like, oh my gosh, like, where is this going? And the fact is that it's almost never the beginning. It's natural cognitive decline, which we can do something about. You know, there are things that we can do, challenging our brain, exercise. Nothing does better than exercise. And, you know, a lot of people don't want to hear that, but when you exercise, you pump blood and oxygen and nutrients up to your brain. And when you do that, it creates new little neurons. Those neurons only keep our cognitive thinking if they connect to the central system in our brain. And I say this in a very lay way in the book, so that it's not so dense you can't get through it. But I got to tell you, as soon as I learned that going out for my power walk and a little bit of jogging here and there, that it wasn't just a matter of, you know, staying in, you know, the size 8 or 10. It was about retaining my cognitive thinking. I like couldn't put my sneakers on fast enough and go out there. I look at exercise in a whole new way now. I go to a hip hop class. I don't go to the hip hop class because I think I want to become a good dancer, because I'm definitely not. Every year when Dancing with the Stars calls, I'm smart enough to say no. My husband always says, I hope you have the good sense never to say yes to them. But I do it because and all the women, we all talk about it at the hip hop class. Why are we here? Because we have to remember to do forward, back, side, this. We're extra, it's all done for our brain. And by the way, in that, you can just run, and that's fabulous for your brain. But if you do, with an instructor in front of you, any kind of step, aerobic, dance aerobics, boxing, hip hop, where you have to hear somebody give you an instruction, your brain has to tell your body to do that movement. That's actually the best for your brain, because you're following instructions and you're having to physically, in a cardio way, do what they're saying. So another reason why I love going to those classes.
Yes.
Or guys, my husband for my birthday, and this was a big birthday. You guys know what this birthday was.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
I can't even wrap my brain around. Like when I look in the mirror, I don't see 70. Like
I don't.
We don't see 70 either.
We look at you either. Yes.
Not even close.
I think in some virtual reality, it turns 70, but not in mine.
Yes. Yes.
For my birthday, and I had been oohing and ahhing, kind of like saliva every time. Every time I saw this commercial for the mirror.
Oh yeah.
So my husband got it for me, and I just got it. It was just put in a couple of days ago. I can be with a one-on-one instructor who's like comes up in my mirror that says, "All right, Joan, what do you want to do today?" Or you can choose everything from meditation to stretching to yoga to Pilates, cardio.
I want that so bad.
So I turned it on for the first time when I came home. I've been away doing a new show I'm doing for a health show for PBS called Second Opinion with Joan Lunden.
Yeah.
And so I came home and I said, "Where'd you put the mirror? So he took me down and I immediately downloaded the app, started picking and then like Jeff yelled down, "Come up, we're having dinner." So I had to put Rachel on
your instructor.
Yes. My instructor. It was the coolest thing. And I said, "All right, I'm up here, but Rachel's like waiting for me to come back." It's like really cool.
I saw Leslie Jordan has one and on his Instagram. So they sent him one. He was talking about it.
No, they didn't send me one. My husband.
Oh, they should have sent you one.
You should have gotten one. Yes.
Yes.
I've never, and probably not, this is not very wise. I've never taken advantage of any of those things. I used to hear women say, "You bought that gown to come to this gala?" Oh man, I borrowed it from, this designer, that designer. And maybe it's because I was always on a news show and maybe we couldn't, I don't know. But speaking of gala, when I told my husband I was going to tell the Spank story.
Oh, yeah.
Don't tell him. We're not going to say what happens. Got to get the book to read what happened in the Spank story. But my husband was like, "You are not telling that story." I said, "Absolutely I am."
Oh, it's just so real.
Relatable. It's so relatable.
Just the story with your mother too. When you had to take all of her clothing over to the funeral home.
Oh yes.
That story.
Tell that one.
You can tell that one. Yes.
When my mom was always called Glitzy Gladdy.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like my guru of positive thinking. And I think the fact that I've had such a positive attitude, and like I always say, a page out of the Joan Lunden playbook is, if anyone asks you if you can do something, just say yes, and then go figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
What has garnered me this amazing life that I've had. So my mom, who wrote her own eulogy, there's, my last chapter, which is, I want to be cremated. It's my last chance for a smoking hot body. It's all about writing your own eulogy. And it's not a morbid task. It's an eye-opening and an empowering exercise to go through, because it can help kind of make guideposts for the rest of your life. If you want people to talk about you in a certain way, you got time to work on that and make sure that that is what people will say. But when my mom passed away, I went in my files, I got out Glitzy Gladdy's eulogy and her instructions. I mean, she like basically made a primetime show. Wanted to sing. Unfortunately, that woman was not still alive. So then she wanted to be buried in her favorite cream white St. John knit with gold. She was Glitzy Gladdy for a reason. She liked anything with gold. Gold lame, gold boots, gold cowboy boots, gold sneakers. And so I got that St. John suit out. I got the little gold, shoes that she wanted to wear. Even the gold Chanel bag. I guess she thought she was going to go out to dinner with people.
Yeah.
She likes to be prepared.
That's yes.
I got all these things. And as I'm gathering them all from where she had passed away, the gals who were there were so wonderful. And they got to be like family to my mom and to me. And I said, oh my gosh, I have to put in underwear. Like, here's a bra of hers, but these last few years have been the Depends years. I don't really have any regular underwear in here. And she said, oh, here, let me get it for you. She ran into her room and got a pair of underwear. She said, here, they've never been worn. I'll take the tag off of them. And she gave me bikini underwear. So I go over to the funeral parlor and I hand him the outfit that she should be put in, along with the little Chanel bag and everything. And then I hand him these bikini underwear. And I told him the story, and I said, and when she gets to heaven and my dad sees this underwear, he's going to have some explaining to do.
I just love that you included that, because that just brought a little bit of just a great little story for something that was probably a sad time. And I love it.
And so many women our age and men are losing their parents. We're dealing with that sandwich generation of aging parents and adult children. For a lot of us are raising our kids. So we can all, when my father passed away and we had to deal with a lot of that stuff, we can relate to it. It's real life. It is what it is.
And we are, for the first time in history, this sandwich generation has never really happened before. It's because our parents are living longer through the miracle of wonderful medicine. And we are getting married later and having children later. And it's kind of like the perfect storm. And all of a sudden you end up, like, I think my chapter is called Strollers, Cars, and Wheelchairs.
Right.
Yeah.
I was buying them all at the same time. And, that's where we find ourselves today. So we are like raising kids and getting them through schooling and taking care of them at the same time we're running. And, I always tell the joke that there's this a woman who buys her son 2 beautiful ties. So the next time he goes to dinner at her house, he says, oh, I'm going to wear one of those ties. And he puts on one of the ties, and he goes and he like rings the bell, and the mom comes and says, what, you didn't like the other tie? And that's how you feel as a working mom today.
Oh, yeah.
You always feel you'd either be at home or you should have been at work. And it's a dilemma.
Can never win. Yeah.
Can just never win.
But now, speaking of children, you have 2 sets of teenagers.
Yeah.
How is that in this stage of life? Well, are they a little older?
3 older girls. They're
right.
all
You have, which there's a great story in your book about a trip you took with them, which just any mom.
I want to tell you that one too.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 sets of twins. They're 17 and 15. So they're all in high school. All 2 just got their driver's license. The other 2 will get their permits in a couple of months because they're 20 months apart.
Wow.
And my husband looked at me the other day and says, this does not mean we need to buy 4 cars, right? I said, no, because one is going to have a car now. She'll go away to college. They never let you have a car on campus when you're a freshman. So it'll go to the next one. It's like,
it'll domino down.
But when, you know, I got married well, here, let me tell you. I got married when I was 29 years old. And I married a 39-year-old man. We had 3 wonderful kids. It totally didn't work out. We were really kind of from 2 different generations. And, you know, he wanted to go to the jazz club and have a bourbon and this, and I wanted to go to the Grateful Dead concert. I mean, we were just, it was like, what? So we got divorced. So 20 years later, when I was 49, I got married again. And again, I married a guy who was 39.
Just that 10 year, yeah.
I'll let that math ruminate with you to realize one was 10 years older, the second one was 10 years younger. That one worked a whole lot better.
Wow.
But, you know, when you're 49 and you want to, you know, the girls all went away to college, and like, I love the sound of little feet pitter-pattering down the hall. I like being at basketball games and on the soccer field and rooting for them. And I got to tell you, I look around and I know that a lot of those moms are a lot younger than me, but I don't feel like we look that much different. Except for when they went into nursery school. You're going to love this one. When my older ones, who are now 17, were like 3 or 4, and we went to the nursery school that all my older ones had gone to. My husband, at one point, where all the parents are sitting around in the class, they have parent night, open house parent night. We're all sitting around the class, and my husband leaned over to me and says, don't look now, but that's Dan right across from us, who dated Jamie. Which was my daughter.
Yeah. Oh, no.
But you know what? I mean, not everyone's going to make a decision like I did, but yeah, it's all individual. I mean, I remember when the second set of twins was born, and the first 2 were like toddlers running all over, like, you know, and my type A girlfriends all came in the front door for a party, and they all looked around and said, oh my God, I'm tired just looking at this. I'm just exhausted. But the French women who had come in from the caterers that were going to help serve at the party, they'd come in like 2 hours earlier, looked at the same exact thing, and said, oh, you are never going to grow old. So one set of eyes looked at the same thing and saw it as exhausting, and the other set of eyes saw it as exhilarating. And so it's all how you perceive things in life, and how you want to color your world. I'm a big believer, and don't just let life happen to you. Plan it, because then it's going to be like you want.
Right. And that you mentioned in your book, and I'm looking at my notes, your happiness plan. I love how you talk about the happiness plan. Can you share a little bit about that?
You know, one of the most enlightening things I ever read, and I forget in what book it was, but and it was the whole concept that happiness is a choice. I think a lot of people think that happiness is something that happens to us outwardly, that comes at us. Happiness is a choice. It's a choice that you make in your head. And I try to say to my kids, if you're in a bad mood, all you have to do is change your mind. That is all you have to do. Just change your mind. And of course, of teenagers, whatever little, I'm not going to say dumb thing, but whatever little thing happens, it's like the end of the world. And I said, is it really, will it matter in 5 years? Because that's one of the chapter titles. If we could all do that every time we all get stressed out over whatever it is in our life, big or little, if you just stop and think about it and you say, is this going to matter in 5 years? 99.9% of the time, it will not matter in 5 years. Life will go on, you know, and you'll barely remember it. But it's hard to do that in in the moment.
Right, in the moment.
I think you have to have a happiness plan. And particularly when you get to be at that, what I call the pivot age. And it can happen to people in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. It'll certainly happen by the time you're in your 60s, where you somehow, what's that phrase with age comes wisdom? It's really true. You hit a point where you kind of allow yourself to exhale. Say, hey man, I'm not on that treadmill necessarily. I'm still doing a ton of stuff, but I don't have that stress, climbing up the ladder. And you can it allows you to look back and say, I've made it through a lot of stuff. And I've managed to be resilient, and I'm here. Like, pat yourself on the back. But then you can also say, are there things that I really thought I'd do or wanted to do that I never did? Have I become the person that I wanted to become? I don't just mean success. I mean kind, compassionate, giving, helpful, a good friend, patient with my teenagers. I'm really still working on that one. But if you can kind of look at that and you make a little life assessment, it allows you to pivot and decide what you're going to do. And we shouldn't be lazy about happiness. They say that there are 3 things that will determine how successful you age. Number 1, social connections. And that's so that you wake up in the morning and you can't wait to tell someone about this that happened. It's not just the daughter that's taking care of you. It is social connections, friends. It can be people at church. It can be people wherever you go, and you have to work on this, and you need to garner together some friends for your later stages of life, because this is the number 1 thing that will keep you wanting to get up in the morning and put your clothes on and smile and go out and be part of the world. Number 2, what's number 2?
Is it in your book?
Wait,
I just turned 70. Give me a
break. I'm like, I have to
wait.
work.
I have that. Wait, I have the
purpose.
Yeah,
a sense of purpose is one of them also, because none of them are money. It's how you're connected socially. It's the fact, socially, you still continue, or you are still socially engaged in life. And the third one is a sense of purpose. And that does not mean you need to go be part of a philanthropy or start one. It doesn't mean you have to go and, volunteer to work at the hospital. Although any hospital you ever go in, that little gaggle of people down front that are mostly like, silver haired, they are happy as hell. You know why? Because they have a place to go and a reason to be there, and they are appreciated, and people are thanking them as they leave the hospital at a vulnerable time. Those are some of the happiest people. But there's a lot of things. It could even be growing a garden.
Right.
Growing that vegetable garden that you always want to do and you never had time to, because it gives you a reason to get up in the morning and be excited about something and feel that there's something waiting for you to do. And it can be a lot of different things to different people. And, I lay a lot of them out in the book so that people get a sense of, it doesn't mean that you're, working for some nonprofit or something. But it does mean that you're making the effort. You're planning your future. You're planning ways to be happy and enthusiastic about getting up in the morning. To me, I think the first thing you should do when you open your eyes is to say, this is going to be an awesome day. Because the things we say to ourselves all day long are the most important things that we say in life. And if you've got that little person over here saying, oh man, I don't go to work anymore, so now what am I going to do? And I don't look as good. I look in the mirror and I see my mom, like all those things. By the way, the other day I walked out of my bathroom and I just caught a glimpse right as I was walking out. I'm like, holy crap.
Is that my mom?
I just saw my mom. Yes. Knowing that it happens to all of us makes it not so frightening and depressing. It's like we can laugh about it when we're all like the huge big sisterhood saying, all right, yeah, it happened to me too, whatever.
Yeah, right. That's what we're very honest on a lot of ways, to the point of probably embarrassing our children on this podcast. And because it is just a part of life, you know what I mean? And we really, Bridget and I talk a lot about what you were saying, is that exercise, when you exercise when you were younger, it was always to fit in a certain size, look perfect in a dress. Yeah. Now we exercise, one, because it's healthy for us. We're going to live longer and our health span.
Healthy.
Right. And 2, you feel better after you
just feel better. Yeah. Now it's to feel better.
Endorphins are the best drug.
Right.
Yeah, they are. They are.
All you have to do is move your tush a little bit and you get those endorphins. Yeah. Those are like happy pills.
Right.
Really
natural happy pills. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How was so were you ever an empty nester between the 3 daughters and the 2 twins?
I met Jeff when the girls were still Sarah. I was just with her. She just moved back from California, from Hollywood. She was one of the producers at Ellen, and she left. Okay. We won't go there. They just moved back to the East Coast, and they were going to move to New York City, but then the pandemic happened. So they moved here to Greenwich, Connecticut, right by me, which is really cool. But when I first met Jeff, she was probably 10 or 11.
Okay.
And then I had two kids and 2 girls in high school. And I remember he used to come, he's always said that he would come in and he'd say, I'd ask a question that like, how was your day? What are you prying for? Why did you ask me that? And so, and he was like a single guy and ran a boys' camp.
Yeah,
right.
He ran summer camps, but at that time he only had the boys' camp. He hadn't bought the girls' camps yet. And so he said, all right, I want everyone's menstrual cycle on the calendar.
It's kind of what my husband feels. Yes, I have.
Yeah, she
so
is
I was
too.
still raising them, and I got to tell you, I mean, there was a sense that the new sheriff was in town.
Oh, wow.
He ran a boys' camp, so when all these guys would come in and they want to like just bop with their little backpack downstairs for the party that was going on, he'd go over there and say, how you doing? Oh, there's some beers in here. Here, let me keep them cold up here.
Yes.
Sheriff in town.
Yes.
But the girls, and he never tried to replace their father, but they turn to him for everything. Like when something goes wrong in their life, they'll sometimes call him before me. You know, because he's used to running kids' lives, and
right.
And I'm more emotional.
Yes. Yeah.
You did get to do that. Sorry, but I just wanted to follow up on that story that you were going to tell about the trip with your 3 daughters.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so when my 3 daughters, who are now in their 30s, when they were teenagers, I wanted to take them somewhere where they would see, I wanted them to have more of a sense of appreciation for what they had in their life. So I wanted to take them to like the other side of the globe, out into Morocco, where people felt lucky if they had a house with a roof over their head, not necessarily even, indoor John or electricity. And you almost feel like you're being transported back in time. Now, that's not for like, Casablanca and some of the big cities, but when you're out in Morocco. So I took them there. And by the way, just last year, I then took the girls of my twins, the twins now, and one of those girls, we went back again for the same reason.
Oh, okay.
But when we went the first time, we went out to the Sahara Desert, and we actually stayed. They take you in like a Hummer or Jeep, and they take you out through these dunes, and all of a sudden you see that between these 2 dunes is like a camp, an outpost. It was glamping before glamping was glamping.
Okay.
And we were coming back. I mean, this time we went and they had the kids, what do you call it? Like sand surf down the dune.
Oh.
And we got in little like buggies and we rode all over the dunes. Those things weren't there 20 years ago when I took the first set of girls. And when we were coming back, there was a whole bunch of like sheep herders. And the driver, who's also your guide and your interpreter, he pulls over to the side of the road and he called one over and he said, I see you have your tent out here. Would you mind if we came and just visited and saw the tent and talked to you about what life is like out here? And the guy said, sure. So they all came inside this big tent with the matriarch who was inside. I don't know how old she was because, she lived on the desert. She would have been a great commercial for, sunscreen.
Yeah.
And so we're all sitting around and he's interpreting and we're asking questions. This life is nomadic. They really live their life by the sun and the moon and the seasons, and they get up when the seasons change. They get everything together and put it on the back of some of the donkeys and they move on. So at one point I asked this woman, how old are you? And she's like, what? And when she finally realized what I was asking her, how many years she had lived, she said, I was born on the desert. There are no papers, no certificates. There's no calendars. They don't have TV. They don't have radio. They didn't have cell phones, nothing. And I got back in the car and I thought, she has no idea how old she is. She could be 50, she could be 80, but when it comes time to move that tent, she's going to pack it all up, and she's not going to say, I packed that donkey like a 20-year-old. She had no concept of age. And I came back home and I thought, wow, we are so married to this concept of age that it is limiting to us, because we think, and I'll admit, like you saw one of the opening scenes of the books, I was like, put this little sundress on, and then I looked in the mirror and I said, is this skirt too short for my age? Like, I hate that phrase, for my age. Can I wear ripped jeans for my age?
Yeah.
But of course, I was on my way to the Social Security office.
That was a great story too.
That was.
I got in there and say, write your name here and we'll call you your name. Like, what?
No.
In front of all these people. So, but it started me thinking about how much we limit ourselves. Like, well, I can't do that anymore because, like, I'm 60. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Right.
If you take 5 women today, all 58 or 62, they're all the same, except one's a marathon runner. One doesn't do anything. Like, they're all completely different. But how will they be described? Really? They will be described
as a 50-year-old
woman. Yeah. That is how they will be described. And it's probably the worst description you could possibly give them. And I think that we're so, like, look, you go to Party City and it's like over the hill when you're 50. Right. You're not over the hill anymore.
Oh, yeah.
In today's world. Like, I wanted to go with a picket sign out in front of their store. Like, that's garbage. You're not over the hill when you're 50. You're like at your peak, you're at your prime as a woman. And sometimes, many women, the kids are kind of going off to college, and it's like, all right, they're gone, now what?
Yes.
We have so many listeners that feel that way, and they're kind of in that mode of, now what? Like, I'm not used to putting myself first. I'm used to putting everyone else first. So so what do I do with that? And it's hard for some women because they feel selfish saying, I'm going to do something for myself.
Even when they're in their 20s and 30s and just getting married and taking care of kids, there is a sense. And I have to admit, if I would have been, like, 40 years ago, if I had come home from work and, like, laid down on my sofa, I would have chastised myself. Like, come on, what are you doing? You're being selfish. You're being lazy. But I wasn't. But I didn't understand that concept back then. Right. You know, to say, no, you're actually listening to your body and you're doing exactly what your body's asking you to do.
Right.
We're, I think, wired. I think we're just, by nature, we're wired to always be taking care of something for somebody else. And so you feel like you're shirking your duty, so to speak.
Right. And there's, like, guilt involved also.
You're letting someone down. There's something you should be doing. There's something always, and it's true that there's something you should be doing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be done right now. You know?
No, but by the way, the other thing that you should be doing is you should be taking care of your own health and happiness. And so if that means going and getting a mani-pedi, which afterwards you think, oh man, I'm all put back together, that makes you happy, then you need to figure out how to, like, slip that in when everybody else isn't looking to you to do something.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's a really
the little
it is. Yeah, the little things. Yeah, and your book addresses so many important things, and it really motivated me. Especially, it really did, especially the part taking care of yourself and just everything, every part of your body. You know, when you talked about, like, eye checks, you know, getting the dermatology appointments, like going to get them.
Check, most preventable cancer going. Totally preventable.
Yeah. I mean, it was you're right. Just everything, your heart, GYN appointments, everything you said. And I was like, okay, I'm making my appointments. I am doing it because
it's so important in today's world. Like, you know, you can stay healthier and more vivacious with more vitality if you if you're driving down the street. And I use this analogy in the book. You're driving down the street and that little orange idiot light comes, check engine, check oil. You go get it checked, right? Because it's an expensive vehicle and you want to keep running. Well, all those little things, that little spot that seemed to be changing right there, that little thing that doesn't heal, whatever. Those are our orange idiot lights.
Right.
That we need to go and get checked. I mean, and for women, if you don't go for your mammogram and you ignore something, you feel something, you think, it'll just go away. You can seal the deal on not getting a good prognosis. And we have so many incredible medicines today and surgical procedures that if you catch something early, if you get that colonoscopy by the, at 50 or earlier, if one of your relatives had found something earlier, you don't have to, there's no excuse for really like getting colon cancer if you're checking it. If you're going every year, they can catch it in time. Breast cancer, don't wait to the point that you're stage 4. And I'm not like casting aspersions on anybody that didn't. Mine was at the very back of my breast, back against the stage, the chest wall. I never, ever would have found it. I never would have felt, I mean, it wasn't out at the side. So, I mean, I went and got my mammogram, but thank God I was sent on an interview for a health show I was doing at the time to interview Dr. Susan Love, who wrote the breast book. And just kind of like in between the guys changing, lights or batteries on their camera, we were chit-chatting and she said, you do go get your annual mammograms, right? And I was like, oh yeah. I said, but they're always so nerve-wracking because I'm the one person in the waiting area that always gets called back in for more pictures. And that's scary. And, you panic. And I always say why did you see something bad? And they always say the same thing. No, it's so hard to see anything because your breasts are so dense.
Yeah.
Well, with that, this doctor says to me, well, wait a minute. If you have very dense breast tissue, that shows up on a mammogram as white. And so does cancer. So it's very easy to have cancer be masked from sight. And by the way, I got that 3D mammogram that day. 3D, the latest. And I was clean. Nothing. Wow. I walked across the hall and had an ultrasound only because when I went on that interview, that doctor told me I should also be getting ultrasounds. If I hadn't gone on that interview, I wouldn't have known that I should also be getting an ancillary test. And that was the test that found my breast cancer. And my breast cancer was triple negative, which of course, when they first told me, I thought, well, God, that's good. At least I'm negative to 3 things. I didn't realize
that's what it meant.
I didn't realize that meant there was no targeted therapy for my cancer, but it's a very aggressive, fast growing cancer. If I had just not had that, by the following year, I could have had stage 4 because it's so aggressive. And it was a fluke that I got that test that day. So that's why within 24 hours of me being diagnosed and realizing how close I was to not finding it, that like lit a fire in me and sent me out. And I'm 6 years now since my diagnosis, so I'm cancer free. But that's what made me want to go out and tell as many women that would listen that you have to find out what your breast density is. And if you're in the 3rd or 4th category, there's 4 categories. Number 1, super fatty, which, women have dense breast tissue when they're young. And then when you get older, you normally would get a fattier breast. And they can see cancer in that very easily in a mammogram. Even in the 2nd one category, they can see it pretty easy. But if you're in the 3rd category, then you have to be careful. In the 4th category, forget it. If your tissue is that dense, you have to have an ancillary test. And I didn't know that dense breast tissue was an issue. Like that woman didn't say to me, because you have dense breast tissue, and by the way, you should know about that. Like,
right.
I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah, we've talked to another woman about this.
Who's an author and speaker.
An author, and just telling the importance of asking the technician while you're in there, do I have dense breast? I've never been told I have. Colleen, you
and I have, and I'm always getting an ultrasound because I have dense breasts. But what was interesting, thank you. What's interesting about the story was that she had gone in for a mammogram a month before and was clean. And then she went in a month later with some symptoms of things that she had stage 4 metastasized breast cancer.
By the way, just for anybody out there that's listening, I get a lot of, on my social media, I just hear from so many women who are in the later stages of cancer. And quite often they've been frustrated. Obviously they're frustrated because they have metastatic breast cancer.
Right.
But they're frustrated because they felt that there wasn't a lot of funding going to study metastatic breast cancer. And at one point that might have been true, but not now. I'm very, very involved in different cancer organizations like BCRF, Breast Cancer Research Foundation. And they gave like $60 million last year, and 3/4 of it all went to the study of metastatic breast cancer. Because now, if we can figure out, like HIV or anything else, how to make this a managed chronic illness as opposed to a death sentence, that's like really cracking the code on breast cancer. So researchers around the world are now really looking at metastatic breast cancer.
That's wonderful.
So I always want to spread that good word out there, that hopefulness.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because there are women living with metastatic breast cancer.
You're starting to see commercials on television for the different
yes.
More
and more. Now that more people are studying it, they're finding more medications.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful.